سارة، صار عندي حادث سيارة واتصلت بالمحامي كيجي.
زين انتي المحامي كي؟
يعني هذا المكتب اللي قالوا عليه أكبر مكتب محاماة عربي كلداني بأمريكا، قاجي؟
لا أنا محامي بالكاجي لا. أنا أعرف لورنس، هو قال لي كاجي لا.
أنا أعرف العائلة زين، يقولوها قاجي.
بعد أي حادث سيارة اتصلوا بي، أنا محامي لورنس قاجي. 248-702-6641 248-702-6641.
أعزائي المستمعين، أهلا وسهلا بكم في برنامج المحامي لورنس قاجي. معي في الاستوديو المحامي لورنس قاجي. أهلا وسهلا. Welcome Mr. قاجي.
أهلا وسهلا. Thank you for having us.
وأهلا وسهلا. Welcome Mr. جان. وأهلا وسهلا بالعزيزة ست تمارا.
يا أهلا وسهلا وأهلا وسهلا.
صوتك شوية
ناصي؟
لا مفتوح المايك.
أهلا وسهلا وأهلا وسهلا للجميع.
أوكي. طبعا دائما حلقات، كل حلقة عندنا موضوع معين. احنا كل حلقة عندنا موضوع معين، مرات نكمل موضوع قديم، واليوم تكملة
للموضوع
مال ديبوزيشن
مال الأسبوع الماضي. كان
ما كملنا.
لا ما كملنا لأنه كلش طويل. الإفادة. شنو الأشياء اللي لازم يسويها الزبون؟
نعم.
وشون احنا نحضره. ففتنا على بعض نقاط وراح نكمل التفاصيل وعلى بعض نقاط أخرى.
نعم.
مهمة. شلون يعني نقدر نحصل على أعلى شيء همينا من القضية. So as we every week, or we begin with a new subject, or we finish a subject from the previous week. So last week we were talking about the depositions and what is and how the client can get the most out of his case for as a settlement. So we went over a lot of head points, and we are going to finish the rest today.
And I was thinking maybe we ought to remind the listeners, especially those who weren't on last week, what a deposition is before we continue on.
Definitely.
So maybe just let people know that, you know, a deposition is basically it's a question and answer session, and it's part of the discovery process where the parties exchange information and they're under oath and they get asked questions and they have to answer questions. And one of the things that we talked about last time that we do for our clients is we prepare them for these depositions by going over many things about their case so that they're fully prepared.
اوكي. نحب نذكر المستمعين اللي احتمال سمعونا الاسبوع الماضي واللي ما سمعونا هم نحب نقول بانه رح نكمل اليوم حديثنا عن الإفادة اللي هي جزء من أول ما نرفع قضية ضد الإنشورنس وراء السنة من الحادث. الإفادة هي مثل تكون تحت الحلفان طبعا، وتكون على شكل سؤال وجواب من قبل الزبون والإنشورنس مالته أو الإنشورنس مال ضد اللي ضربه.
حسب ما ذكرنا الأسبوع الماضي أنه أنتم تقعدون وياه تقريبا ساعتين
بالضبط. نحضر الزبون قبل الإفادة لأنه عندنا مثل الأسئلة والأجوبة اللي صار لنا كلش فترة طويلة، سوينا أكثر من 200 من 2000 قضية. عندنا أكثر الأسئلة، وإحنا دائما نقول ما قل ودل السؤال على قد الجواب. إذا نعم أو لا نجاوب نعم أو لا.
I was going to say 200. That was probably just this year. We've done 200.
201 month.
200 maybe just the last month.
Yeah.
So also why depositions are important. Just to remind the listeners what we spoke about last week. You know, it has effect on which claims you can make as part of your accident case, right? So whether it's you know, your medical bills, your wage loss, your tenant care, it all affects what claims you can make. Also, it shows how you are going to look in front of a jury, right? So
Absolutely.
The appearance of how you look, how you talk, and they're going to look at that and they're going to say, all right, how is this person going to look in front of a jury?
Yeah.
Is he going to be presentable? Is he trustworthy? Are the you know, we've had cases where the jury loves our clients. And, the facts are not as important as, that sometimes. And oftentimes we have very good facts and the clients are not believable for whatever reason.
So the first impression is very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to add to that, this is a lot of the time the first time that the insurance company representatives actually get to see and hear the claimant in a case.
طبعا احنا الافاده همنا من عده نواحي جدا مهمه. اولا بانه الانشورنس مالتك او ضد اللي ضربك اول مره راح يشوفك ويسمعك. كلش مهمه بانه يشوفون شلون تجاوب، شلون تحكي، هل انت اول شيء طبعا دائما النظره الاولى جدا مهمه، تنطي انطباع جدا مهم، وخاصة تفيد إذا احتاجنا نصعد إلى المحكمة العليا، وحتى هيئة المحلفين يشوفون شلون هل هو أحد موثوق به، هل حكي يعني صحيح، يعني متكامل، مثل ما يعني يمشي ويا القضية. هاي كلها أشياء يباعون عليها أهل الإنشورنس، وإذا صعدنا إلى المحكمة العليا ضد هيئة المحلفين.
Exactly. That was my last thing. What I was going to say was also it's important for impeachment purposes. So, most obviously tomorrow, John, you guys know most cases resolve, right? So 95% of cases, they resolve, no trial needed. They're resolved during discovery, during case evaluation, during facilitation phase. But if you do end up going to trial, the small percentage of cases that do go to trial, anything you say or deposition, if you say anything different at trial, they will bring the deposition transcript, they will show it to the judge, and they will say that you are lying in front of the jury. Yes. Essentially is what happens. Yeah.
Yes.
I like to tell people anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
This is how it plays out, right?
Yes.
That's how that statement plays out.
Yeah.
مثل ما قلنا بأنه جدا مهم بأنه واحد يكون صريح. الإفادة راح تكون تحت الحلفان. طبعا 95% من القضايا تنحل قبل ما نصعد للمحكمة العليا، بس اكو 5% احتمال تصعد. اذا صعدنا الإفادة تستعمل ايضا بالمحكمة العليا، اللي يطابقون بأنه أنت شنو كان كلامك أو أجوبتك بالإفادة يطابقوها ويا المحكمة
حتى لا يصير اختلاف.
وإذا صار اختلاف يقولون شوفوا شلون الحكي مو صحيح مو مطابق مع يعني احنا نقول كلمة كبيرة بأنه واحد يعني يكذب، بس يعني مرات معلومات غلط، واحد مرات ينسى يسهو ينسى، أو واحد من هالقد مرتبك يقول أشياء غلط، فلازم واحد يكون جدا جدا واضح شلون يعني يجيب الأسئلة، وإحنا طبعاً
شلون يجاوب يعني
ويجاوب الأسئلة، وإحنا موجودين طبعاً ونحاول نحضرهم.
ودائما يكون واحد وياه أيضا بالمحكمة اعتيادي المحامي،
عدة محامين
وليس محامي واحد.
بالضبط.
نعم.
Yes.
And it's interesting. Before we maybe go into the specifics, there are a couple of real general things that are always useful when dealing with an insurance company, which is not only really applicable to a deposition, right? But it's also applicable to just talking with the insurance company at any point in time. When you have an attorney, your attorney generally speaks for you, but a lot of people are going to call in, they're going to make those claims to the insurance company before they have an attorney. And, a lot of people make the mistake of talking too much, right? Or saying things that aren't accurate unintentionally a lot of the time. And, I think that a couple hints that I always tell people is, look, if you're asked a question and you don't know an answer, don't make something up or guess and make it sound like it's a fact. Just tell them that you don't know or you don't remember, right?
Yeah, and remember that this all goes into a transcript, right? So it's all written out. So how you say it, the way you say it, that doesn't really matter at this point, right? So they can obviously, how lawyers work, they can take your words and twist them into ways to make it seem like it's something else that you're intending to say.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people innocently say, it was January 1st of 2021 when they meant 2022, but all of a sudden they're going to use that time frame against the client, and so there are things like that occur all the time.
مثل ما قلنا بأنه الإفادة تكون مسجلة وتحت الحلفان. واحد يكون جدا جدا حذر شلون بالكلام، وشلون يجيب الكلام همينه. إذا فشي السؤال انسأل وأنت ما متأكد 1,000,000% تجاوب لو ما أتذكر لو ما أعرف. هاي مو غلط،
يعني
أفضل بس مو على كل سؤال تقول ما أعرف وما أتذكر. بالضبط، لأنه مثلا إذا تقول الحادث صار يوم بشهر الواحد يوم 5/21، أنت غلطت قصدك 22، يقدرون يستعملون هذا ضدك. فإحنا دائما وهنا أعتقد الأكثرية يعرفون بأنه أنت لك حق، أي شيء مو لك حق، أي شيء تقوله يقدر يستخدم ضدك همينه. فواحد لازم يدير باله شلون يتكلم.
صحيح.
So you mentioned I think you mentioned the Supreme Court, or was it the Court of Appeals, or you just mentioned the trial court?
A trial court.
Okay.
Yes.
So I did want to mention some good news for the week. I know it's off topic. John knows what I'm going to say. So remember we had spoken about a case that we had in the Michigan Supreme Court recently. So just to remind the listeners, right, we have our trial courts, which you're talking about now. We have our Court of Appeals. We also have our Michigan Supreme Court, which is the highest court in Michigan. So we were talking about that case. If you guys remember, it was regarding a MACP case. So remember, when there's no insurance, that you have no insurance in the household, generally speaking, you're eligible for benefits through the state of Michigan. So in one case that we had, I'll just remind listeners of the facts really quick. So in one case that we had, it was a out-of-state accident, and the MACP was claiming that the accident had to occur in the state of Michigan.
Yes.
And obviously, I explained what happened last time in the trial courts in the Court of Appeals. We ended up in the Michigan Supreme Court. We just got an order this week, and we won our case at the Michigan Supreme Court. It's going back to the Court of Appeals for further consideration, or the trial court. I got it.
No, it's going back to the Court of Appeals.
Court of Appeals, yes.
Yes.
So as of right now, we have one at that level. It's going back to the lower court level, and we'll see what happens.
مثل ما قلنا قبل كم اسبوع كنا نحكي على كان عندنا القضايا بانه اكو قوانين تطلع من المحكمه مال العليا مال ميشيغان، مال الستيت ميشيغان، مو مالت الكاونتي. كنا نحكي على هالموضوع، وقلنا احنا عندنا قضيه وياهم همينا بانه القضيه كانت الشخص المتأذي ما كان عنده انشورنس، ورحنا عن طريق الستيت اوف ميشيغان. المحكمة العليا بالكاونتي رفضتها. سوينا استئناف، صعدت بالاستئناف إلى المحكمة العليا مال ميشيغان. جانا تقرير بأنه ربحناها، ونزلت مرتلخة للمحكمة.
ليش نزلت؟
دائما من تربح هناك لازم تنزل.
So all they do is determine the issue, right? So the issue was this, is they determine it, now they send it back to the
لغة واحدة.
مو لغة. المحكمة العليا مال ميشيغان تشوف بأنه أكو فد يعني فد
certain issues.
فد غرض معين، بأنه هاي ليش أكو أسئلة وأجوبة على هذه القضية، والمحكمة تقرر بأنه هل هاي القضية راح تمشي لو راح توقف. فالمحكمة العليا الميشيغان قررت بأنه لا، صحيحة هي وراح تمشي، فتنزل مرتلخة للمحكمة حتى تكمل طريقها.
So Lawrence, maybe I can ask you a little bit about that. So correct me if I'm wrong. Was it the Supreme Court vacated the prior appellate court ruling, right? And then remanded it back down to the appellate court for reconsideration? Is that
with a specific question that they asked?
Right. Yeah. So technically it's not over yet.
It's not over yet,
but هي ما خلصت بعدها.
It's definitely a good step forward.
But it's a good step forward,
كلش مرحلة تقدمية متقدمة جيدة. إنه طبعا هم من يقولون نعم أكو فد أسئلة يسألوها خاصة لازم نجاوب عليها، وإن شاء الله نكمل.
Titi, Tamara, did you explain the facts of that case? Sorry.
Well, and why it's important.
It's an MACP out of state
accident, right? Okay.
And maybe we should explain just why that's important, because if someone's injured in an accident that's out of state, they may not have coverage through Michigan no fault law. this case is not one.
Yeah, right.
ليش هاي جدا مهمة؟ لأنه إذا هاي القضية بأنه هو راح ويا فتحنا له قضية ويا ميشيغان ستيت حتى تحط له انشورنس، بما أنه الحادث صار خارج الستيت، خارج ميشيغان، القانون يقول لازم أنت تكون عايش بميشيغان. فإذا هاي ربحت القضية
هواي راح تتبدل شغلات.
هواي بالضبط. واحدة من الأشياء اللي
And also this is super important because it used to, prior to the reform in 2019, everyone had coverage in any state regardless.
Yeah.
So this was
Yeah, this all traces back to the new laws and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
هذا
قديم.
كله يرجع
Right.
بأنه شلون القوانين كلها تغيرت بال 2019. قبل ال 2019 كان الكل عندهم انشورنس، ماكو حد ما عنده انشورنس. بس ورا ال 2019 هواية قوانين تغيرت. ف إن شاء الله and we keep our finger crossed.
Yeah, special thanks to Preston Denha and Brian Carrier from our office who worked on this together.
Yes.
And you know, the brief was very good, and you know.
طبعا الشكر إلى محامين اثنين عندنا بالمكتب اللي هم اشتغلوا على هاي جدا شاطرين، اللي المحامي بريستون دنها والمحامي براين كارير.
And so in essence what you're trying to do is you're trying to basically get a court ruling that allows us to pursue these claims for Michiganders no matter where their accident is. You know, that's one of the things our firm is doing, which I think is a laudable goal. So
واحدة من الأشياء المهمة بأنه إحنا هسه مكتبنا اللي دا يحاول يسوي بأنه يغير هذا القانون. فالمرحلة الأولى تخطيناها هي المرحلة المحكمة العليا مال ميشيغان، ونزلت مرتلخة إلى المحكمة مال
يعني بهاي الطريقة أنتم بالنسبة لكم في الوقت الحاضر أنتم ساعدتوا محامين آخرين على هالشيء هذا.
مو بس المحامين،
whole state
وهول الكلاينتس اللي عنده
هيك
قضية بالضبط.
يعني you can go to the previous cases.
It's gonna apply.
It's gonna apply back to the 2019 reform.
Unless
3 years ago.
Unless the court says differently, it'll apply back.
That's good.
Yeah.
ما عدا إذا المحكمة قررت غير شكل، إذا تبدي حاليا ونمشي لو نرجع بأنه من تغيرت كل القوانين من 2019.
It's not so much a retroactive application. It's actually what the correct interpretation of the reformed act is or should be.
Should be
as of 20. Well, yeah, both because so the act was written in 2019, the reform, right?
Yes.
And so when you rewrite a law, all of a sudden, all the case law that interprets that law from the old law isn't necessarily still valid. Okay. And so the context of this is Michigan Assigned Claims was saying in 2019, after the reforms, and in 2020 and 2021, we don't have to assign individuals who would otherwise be entitled to an insurance company. We don't have to assign them an insurance company, and they get potentially in that case, no benefits whatsoever, meaning they don't get their lost wages, they don't get help around the house, they don't get any medical bills. That's what we're fighting about.
اوكي، اللي احنا بدنا نحارب ضد بانه بال 2019 2021 الى حاليا لهسه ميشيغان الستيت اللي هي MACP ميشيغان Assigned Claims تقول بأنه احنا ما مجبورين بأنه ننطي لأي أحد انشورنس إذا هي صارت الحادث خارج ميشيغان. احنا بدنا نحارب هالشيء بأنه شلون يريدون هم يخلون القانون أو هل راح يرجعوا لل 2000. هي ماكو هنا ابيض واسود، دائما اكو فد مكان رصاصي رمادي دائما. بس راح تتوضح هوايه اشياء، وراح اذا ربحت معناته اي احد يعيش بميشيغان وصار عنده حادث خارج ميشيغان يصير عنده تغطيه.
هذا بالوقت الحاضر والمستقبل قصدك
اذا تغير.
قديم قلنا احتمال
من
يرجعون على 2019.
نعم.
So I just want to say, Sahar, this is one thing that we do differently than other law firms. So I would say 9 out of 10 law firms probably wouldn't have taken this case from the beginning and litigated this issue because the reason is, other lawyers are on an hourly basis, right? So as they're working, they get paid. That's not the case with us. We don't get paid until we win. until we win. So imagine this case was a 2018 accident. We are still litigating it. We have not made $1 on this case. But I do.
Maybe you spent 100,000.
I would spend a lot of money on this case. But I love taking these cases because it's different. It's something that other firms won't do. And I have the staff for taking on these issues. So, let's do it. Why not?
That's good.
9 من 10 مكاتب ما ياخذون هيك قضايا. لأنه أكثر المحامين ياخذون بالساعة رواتبهم، بينما إحنا ما ناخذ أي شيء على ما نربح القضية. بما أنها القضية من 2019 معناته إحنا خالين إيش قد عليها، صارفين عليها، واحتمال إذا ما ربحنا ما نربحنا ماكو شيء بالضبط. بس عندنا المحامين الشطر والقادرين على هيك مستوى القضية. ومحامي لورنس دائما يريد
متفائل، هو دائما
اي ويريد يعني مو يثبت بس هو يقدر واكو بها احتمال، اذا بها احتمال ليش لا.
It's not just about taking easy cases,
Exactly.
Anyone can take an easy case, right? Anyone can take an easy case.
Yes, that's true.
A brand new lawyer out of law school can take an easy case and settle it for a policy limit.
Yes. مثل ما قال كل واحد، أي محامي يقدر ياخذ، حتى لو محامي هسه هو طالع من الكلية يقدر ياخذ
قضايا
سهلة تاخذ البالس ليمس وتمشي. بس هيك قضايا اللي هي صعبة هي تكون
بها صرف
وقت
وبها وقت.
ويراد يعني محامين أكفاء وشاطرين ويعرفون ايش يسوون.
صحيح. فعندنا مكتبنا حلو يعني.
إن شاء الله.
So should we get back on the agenda?
We'll give it a try.
Yeah, like after 25 minutes.
يعني إحنا most of the programs, our programs are conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes,
Go
as a family.
Go which way? This way, that way?
Anyway. It depends. And we have good translator.
Yes.
وهاي المعلومات يعني صحية عامة بس كلش تفيد المستمعين والجالية مالتنا.
فلهذا نعيد بيها يعني.
بالضبط.
And you also get more respect from your peers, from the insurance companies, and when you are kind of handling things that are just not flipping.
Not everybody handle it.
بالضبط. الانشورنس والكل يشوف يعني ينظروا بغير نظرة يعني غير شكل.
يعني يحترمون اكثر
ويعرفون بانه ذا شطار.
هذا يخوف.
هذا هيك يس. احنا ما نريد نقول نخوف، حتى لا نخوف اي احد.
لا انت بالعكس بالنسبه بالنسبه للكلاينتس هي فائده. هي فائده للكلاينت.
So that everyone has a reputation, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the insurance companies know your reputation. The adjusters know your reputation. I mean, it is what it is. Everyone, you have a reputation, right?
Yes.
Same thing. Everyone has reputation.
Yeah.
Reputation for which?
For what? I mean,
well, it could be good or bad, right?
Could be, yeah.
Hopefully good. Anyway, so we picked where we stopped last week. We were talking about depositions, and we were getting into prior injuries and prior accidents, which is huge.
Yeah.
Yes. مثل ما قلنا بدنا نحكي على الإفادة. نحكي على الإفادة اللي دائما تصير ورا سنة ونص من الحادث. دائما لازم يرجعون لي ورا إلى سنة ونص، ومرات إلى سنين، يريدون يعرفون شنو الأشياء اللي الباك جراوند يعني شنو تاريخك اللي كان قبل.
Yeah. So just a reminder to the listeners, it's okay if you have prior injuries, it's okay if you have prior accidents, just gotta let us know. And I'll explain kind of what they do with certain things. So like I said, prior injuries and accidents they're going to go over. So even if it's not an injury or an accident, any pre-existing conditions that you have, if you have prior back pain for the last 10 years, if you're on Social Security, those sort of things, they're going to look into everything. And like I said, it's okay. We know how to work with certain things, but you just got to let us know.
Yeah.
نخبر المستمعين ما يخالف إذا عندك أنت أضرار قبل الحادث، كانت عندك ظهرك يوجعك، رقبتك، إيديك، كباتك، إذا أنت كنت بحادث قبل، إذا أنت على السوشيال سيكيورتي، كل هاي ما يخالف. مو معناته ما عندك قضية، بس خبر المحامي مالتك. هاي نقطة جدا جدا مهمة.
احنا دائما نقولها.
And they're not talking about just necessarily motor vehicle accidents, right? They're talking about they could be work injuries. It could be, you know.
ومو إلا حوادث سيارات، يكون بالبيت متزحلق وواقع، احتمال بالشغل متأذي بأي
could be slip and
طريقة،
falls. Could be
من أي
whatever.
طريقة أو أخرى.
أي طريقة اللي صار عندك أنت
ضرر.
جرح أو ضرر.
بالضبط. خبر المحامي، هاي أهم شيء. لا تضم أي شيء على المحامي.
Yeah. So they'll ask you about prior hospitalizations and your prior doctor visits, and I'm going to tell you why they do this. The biggest trap, I would call it a trap, that whatever you want to call it, something that happens a lot is that the clients don't tell us about prior injuries. At their deposition, they're going to be asked about prior hospitalizations and prior doctors. So they can ask you who's your primary care doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now they're going to take that information and they're going to essentially subpoena your primary doctor for all of your records. Let's say you've been going to the same primary doctor for the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get all those records. So if you're not if you weren't being honest at your deposition and they find something in the records, let's say they asked you if you had any prior injuries and you say no, and in your medical records it shows an accident from 5 years ago or a slip and fall from 5 years ago, guess what's going to happen in your case?
Dismissed.
It's not going to be good.
Well, it's not necessarily going to be dismissed, but it's going to impact the
You can say
value.
that you're not going to be very credible in front of the jury.
Right. It's going to impact the value because then they're going to say, well, look, you said this, but the reality was this. So why do we have to now trust you about what you're telling us about your
That's why you
accident?
always got to be honest.
بأنه تكون جدا واضح قدام الانشورنس. ونقول مرة الأخ بأنه إذا عندك أي أضرار أي شيء تخبرنا، لأنه بالإفادة من تقعد قدام الانشورنس already عندها كل المعلومات مالتك. فإذا أنت قبل 5 سنين 10 سنين كان عندك كنت بالمستشفى لأي سبب من الأسباب، أو عندك أي جرح أو عندك أي عملية
يعرفون.
أو أي شيء، كل شيء يعرفون. فمن يسألوك إذا ما تعرف أنت ما تتذكر، لا تقول لا. كلمة لا غير محبذة.
You know, Lawrence, on this particular subject.
يقول
I'm
ما
sorry.
شنو اللي يقول ما أعرف، نسيت
ما أعرف. لو يقول الحقيقة إذا يعرف. أي مثلا واحد يعرف مسوي عملية له،
طبعا عادي،
هاي فشي طبيعي. بس قول لي يا يوم لا أنا ما أعرف.
بس المفروض أنه يكون المحامي يعرف بالشيء هذا قبل.
ولذلك نكون جدا صريح مع المحامي حتى إحنا الصفحتين نعرف كل شيء.
Because we're going to be filling out, right? The client's going to be filling out paperwork. We're going to be going through discovery that asks certain questions, and you got to be truthful in those.
Yes.
You know, our names are on these things too. So if my client's not being truthful to me, it's going to affect us too.
Yeah.
Right.
إذا الزبون ما يكون صريح ويانا، أولا راح يأثر، لأن إحنا مثل ما قلنا الإفادة هي نص كلها، يعني حقيقة
هي الكيس كلها،
هي القضية كلها، ويعتمد إيش قد تجيب لك. فإذا أكو أي غلط أو أي شيء ولو أي علامة حمراء أو أي علامة استفهام تقلل
من المبلغ اللي راح تستلمه
مالتك. هي هنا النقطة الجدا
مبلغ التعويض.
بالضبط.
No.
Well, and you know, Lawrence, I just want to say, you know, that's one of the reasons why I say if people don't remember something, you know, don't guess, you know, just say you don't remember, because you know, one of the really common examples that happens a lot is they'll ask a simple question like, "Did you ever have prior, you know, back pain before the accident?" And it sounds like an innocent question because you're like, no, my back was totally fine before the accident. I didn't have any issues. But the problem is that question is really broad, right? Have you ever had back pain before the accident? I mean, if you think about the way they're asking that question, I mean, who hasn't had back pain in their life at some point, whether you've woken up on the wrong side of the bed?
You mean they work as an actor?
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, it's just that it's kind of a tricky question,
Yes.
right? So I think what we try to get people to do when we're preparing them for depositions is to think about the way that question is asked. And, and you could say, no, I never had any prior back pain. But then if there was a record from 10 years ago when you went to see your primary care doctor because you woke up with back pain after lifting a couch and you've forgotten about it, then you run into potentially a little bit of a problem.
Yes.
So we try to say, maybe the more correct answer would be, I don't recall having any pain like the pain I had from the accident, right?
Yes.
Before the accident happened. Because they're not quite the same things. So.
السؤال اللي ينسأل من طريق الانشورنس. طبعا احنا قبل السؤال ما ينسأل اكو مرحلة يسموها الاكتشاف اللي هي من ضمنها هي الإفادة، وهاي بأنه تصير بين الاثنين، بين المحامي والإنشورنس، تبادل معلومات. بالضبط. بس الإنشورنس همينة جزء عندها معلومات احنا ما عندنا إياها. لو احنا عندنا معلومات الانشورنس ما عندها اياها.
نفس السؤال سالناه الاسبوع الماضي، قلنا يعني اكو مرات ما ينطي كل شو اسمه.
المفروض ينطون. المفروض ينطي. بس احنا خاصة الجالية، وانا دائما اركز على الجالية. ليش؟ لان اكو ترجمة، مرات بالترجمة يصير همنا غلط. فيكون السؤال Did you ever have any back pain؟ هل انت راح اقولها بحياتك
ما صاير عندك
الم ظهرك؟ اكيد في اليوم نايم غلط مثل ما قال المحامي، لو شايل شيء ثقيل وظهرك يوجعك، لا تقول لا ما اتذكر. لو بس مو مثل هسه اللي صار الالم يعني بيه. بالضبط. واحد يقدر شويه بس لا تكبر بفلان سنه، لا كلش شو اسمه ما اتذكر. لو ما أعرف، بس واحد يعرف إذا واحد عنده أذية لو لا.
Yeah. So essentially, what they're trying to do here, aside from all the other stuff we mentioned, is they're essentially going to try to link your current injuries from the accident to prior injuries, prior accidents, prior right. Whatever happened.
Because the insurance company doesn't have to pay for treatment that isn't related to the accident.
Yes. ليش هي الانشورنس تسوي هالشيء؟ حتى تحاول ما تدفع، تحاول بأنه تخلي هذا الضرر على السابق، لأن الانشورنس هي شغلها ما تريد تدفع. فاحنا شغلنا بأنه لا، هذا الضرر من هذا الحادث ولازم تدفعون.
All right, so John, anything to add to that?
Plenty, but I'll let you move on.
So we're just talking about prior accidents and injuries. Now we'll be talking about subsequent accidents and injuries. So after the accident.
Yep.
After the accident.
So let's say that you're in an accident. No. Let's say you're in an accident, right? Yes. And you were injured in that accident. Right. But what if, because of that accident, okay, you get dizzy and you fall and then you get hurt later? Or maybe it's something completely unrelated. Let's say you just simply are going to work one day after the accident, you've recovered a little bit, and you get hurt on the job. So they're going to ask you, in addition to what your injuries were as a result of the accident, they're going to ask you about what injuries did you sustain after the accident.
Yeah, so another example, Sar. Another example is, let's say you have an accident and 2 days later you slipped and fell in a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And you injured your back in both incidents.
Right. Yeah.
So what do you think the insurance companies are going to say? No, you're not injured from the accident. You're injured from the fall.
Yes, they will.
They will.
I mean, that's an argument they can make, right?
Yeah.
We're not responsible.
How they will know?
That's why in your deposition they're going to ask you what happened after the accident. If you have any falls, if you have any accidents.
Yes.
Well, let me put it in, let me let you translate, because you got a lot to translate, and then I want to add to that.
First.
السؤال الآخر بأنه سألوا بأنه هل أنت عندك أي أضرار جسدية قبل الحادث؟ السؤال الآخر يكون هل أنت عندك أي أضرار جسدية بعد الحادث؟ صار الحادث، دايخ، وقعت، لو قبل ورا كم يوم رحت للشغل وتأذيت بالشغل، صار عندك غير أضرار، فالانشورنس هنا هم راح تسألك هل عندك أنت أي أضرار جسدية بعد الحادث، لأنه يحاولون يقولون أوكي لحد هاي الأضرار اللي كانت مو من هذا حادث بالضبط.
So, and let me give another example of this that I think might make it clear as to why it matters, right? Let's say that you have a motor vehicle accident, okay, on June 1st of 2023, okay? So just a couple months ago, let's say.
Couple of months.
You injure in that accident your back, your neck, and your shoulders, okay? This is just an example. Then let's say that 3 days later, okay,
You fall.
you're walking out of your house, you slip and you fall. Okay.
Yeah.
After the accident, you went to the hospital within those first 3 days. You went to the hospital and you told them about your back, your neck, and your shoulders. After the slip and fall, you go to the hospital again. And this time you complain about your back and your knees. Okay.
You add it.
So there's two things here, right? So your back was injured in both
One
incidents,
already
right?
in a car accident.
Right. Your back was injured in both the car accident and the slip and fall. The knees weren't injured in the auto accident, right?
Wasn't.
So it would be actually correct for the insurance company to say, we are not responsible to pay for the injuries to your knee because that wasn't related to a motor vehicle accident. And then I'm going to add to that.
مثل ما قلنا بأنه أنت تضررت رقبتك لو ظهرك وشتافاتك تأذت ورا كم يوم زحلقت وقعت وظهرك وركباتك تأذت. الانشورنس راح تسألك هل أنت تأذيت؟ إيه نعم. شنو هي الأذية؟ ظهري وركباتي. فالانشورنس إلها حق تقول بأنه الكبات ما إلها علاقة بحادث السيارة وأني ما أدفع أي شيء.
ما كانت موجودة.
بالضبط. فبهاي النقطة بأنه مبينة بأنه هي صوت الواقعة مو صوت الحادث.
وأنتوا راح تتحاججون بهذا الشيء.
So yeah, so the auto insurance company we just established doesn't have to pay for the knees,
Yes.
but your health insurance
Will pay that.
may pay for the knees. But then the bigger question here is, well, what about the back? Because you did injure your back in the motor vehicle accident, right?
Yes.
But then you also injured it again.
Maybe it's harder.
Well, that's the thing. You injured it again in the slip and fall. So does the insurance company have to pay for the medical treatment related to your back? And the answer is maybe. And the reason I say maybe is because it's going to depend on what the doctors are going to relate your injury to. Do they think it's related to the auto accident, or do they think it's related to slip and fall, or is it maybe kind of both? And so it's a question that gets frequently brought up, both for prior injuries as well as subsequent injuries. That means before and after the accident.
If they said both, the doctor.
Well, if it's both, then it gets a little bit complicated because you generally have to, that's why most claims settle, right? So at the end of the day, that's something you argue over. You say, look, this doctor thinks it's related. What frequently happens is the plaintiff, if we're going to claim it in a motor vehicle accident case, one of the plaintiffs or all the plaintiff's doctors will say, look, this back treatment is related to the auto accident. But then frequently the defense, that is the insurance company, will bring in their doctor, and their doctor will say, well, I think it's related to the subsequent slip and fall. And so we shouldn't have to pay. And then you have to negotiate something on that.
So, قلنا بأنه الركبات جدا واضحة ما كانت موجودة بالحادث. المشكلة الظهر، لأنه الظهر أنت كنت متأذي بحادث السيارة وهسه بالوقعة. ترجع كله إلى التقارير الطبية. طبيبك شو يقول؟ هل هي أكثر من حادث سيارة أو أكثر من الوقعة؟ إذا أنت مسوي تحاليل مثل التصوير الطبقي للرنين وعندك تقارير تبين مال الحادث وتسويها مرة لخور الحادث، هاي تبين شوية أكثر وضوح بيها. بس إذا الطبيب يقول لا، أعتقد من الاثنين هاي شوية تصير القضية شوية أصعب، بيها أخذ وعطاء أكثر وبيها تنازلات همينة لازم، فتكون القضية شوية أقل من الاعتيادي لأنه راح يدفعون أقل، لأنه يقولون بأنه هاي
مو بسبب السيارة.
بالضبط، نص بنص.
Yeah, no, John, you bring up a great point actually. So we talk about issues that you can have in your case, and what usually happens is not all of these issues will result in dismissal of your case,
right?
But what will result is a lower settlement offer and generally lower value in your case, because you don't want some of these issues going in front of the jury that are not going to make you look good. So if you do have an issue in your case, sometimes you're better off settling it for a lower amount than keeping pushing it and then ending up with a no cause later down the road in trial. And obviously your lawyer will probably be the best person to ask,
Right.
whether to take a low settlement offer or proceed to trial.
And this isn't even necessarily things that are like dishonest things. Sometimes it's just you are who you are. Everybody has a history.
100%.
So
مثل ما قلنا بأنه القضية ما راح تكون صفر، ما راح تكون يعني تنسد. القضية راح تكون سعرها أقل لأنه بها سؤال، بها أشياء استجدت بها علامات استفهام هواية. هاي هيك قضايا نحاول نسوي لها تسوية، ما نحاول نصعدها للمحكمة العليا، لأنه راح تكون يعني صورتك قدام المحلفين غير صحيحة،
ما عندك حجج قوية.
بالضبط. ذاك الوقت احتمال تخسر كل شيء بدل ما تحصل فشي.
لا على
بالضبط. فأحسن شيء بأنه أنت تحكي ويا المحامي مالتك وهو يعني يعطيك شنو الأفضل له، النصيحة الأفضل لك.
do you want to?
Yeah. So anything else to add, John, to that?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So what else I'll be asking about is if there was any witnesses to the accident, right? And John, you want to explain why that's important to the case, obviously?
Yeah. I mean, for the first thing is obviously if there's a witness to the accident, it's more proof that it happened, right? Because sometimes you have situations, for example, a hit and run, right? They do happen, and in sort of a more urban environment, they happen more often than you'd think. We have quite a few cases where there's a driver, he's just moving along, minding his own business. Some guy comes out of nowhere, hits the person, and then flees the scene. And the problem is, in a lot of hit and run accidents, just as one example, you're generally injured, you're sitting there, your car was just hit. Your first thought is not to pull out your phone and snap a picture of their license plate.
And no witnesses.
Right. And if there's no witnesses, not to say it didn't happen, but it's harder to prove, right? It's just that person's testimony. On the other hand, 3 people are standing on the side of the road. They all see it and they tell a police officer. Well, all of a sudden you got great witnesses. But there are other kind of witnesses too. People can witness your condition before and after an accident, right? There are witnesses such as doctors, okay, who treat you, and physical therapists. So there are all sorts of different witnesses that apply to a case.
الشغلة الأخرى اللي جدا مهمة للإفادة هي الشهود. شهود جدا مهمين، خاصة إذا أنت تسوق وحدك قاعد بالسيارة وواحد إجا ضربك وانهزم. أولا أنت هسه انضربت سيارتك، ماذا تعرف شنو اللي صار هسه؟ وهمينا ما راح تتذكر بأنه خلي أطلع immediately تليفوني وأخذ صورة للسيارة اللي انضربتني. بالضبط. بهيك حالة ماكو شهود، تكون صعبة، لازم تثبت روحك بأنه أنت تضررت. بنفس الحالة احتمال أكو 3 واقفين على صفحة، لو سيارة اللي وراك لو تمشي بصفك شافته ووقف وجو الشرطة وقالوا له، هيك حالة صار عندك شهود. الشهود مو بس شهود عيان يعني بس اللي باعون، الشاهد الآخر طبيبك بأنه أنت كنت تتعالج جمع على غير أشياء أنت ما عندك هاي الأعراض اللي هسه صارت بيك من وراء الحادث تفرق. فهذا همنا نوع من أنواع الشهادة. يعني من هاي الأشياء اللي نقدر نطلع من عندها الشهادة ونشوف شلون نقدر ندافع للشخص، خاصة إذا واحد انضرب وهرب.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the entire case is really based on witnesses on one way or another. It's based on the person themselves who, and then everyone they know that can testify as to how things have changed.
Right. So, looking at it from as a global picture, right? They're looking at your witnesses, who you're going to bring to trial,
right,
and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
منو راح تجيب للمحكمة إذا صارت عندك محكمة، الأطباء مالتك، مرات الأهل بالبيت يقدرون يشهدون، يعني حسب، ولو الأهل لأنه أهل شوية
اهل يعتبر
شوية مو
مجروحة
قوية،
الشهادة
أي
مالهم.
شوية مو قوية، بس أي أحد
هم تلعب دور.
دعم.
They're also going to ask about statements. So if you made any written statements or any verbal statements, the police officer, literally anything. If you made any statements to the insurance companies, who you made that statement to. Remember, this is all during the discovery phase. So they're trying to dig into more information. Okay, you made a statement to who? Okay, now let me get those, that paperwork, that sort of thing.
Yep. الشغلة الأخرى همينة، إذا أنت سويت ستيت، يعني الشرطي من يجي يقول لك احكي لي الصار،
يكتبها
بالضبط. هاي همينة نوع من أنواع الإفادة. لو مثلا يقول لك اكتب لي شنو اللي صار، همينة هاي نوع من أنواع الإفادة. فلو مثلا الانشورنس قبل ما يشوفون أي محامي يخابروهم يسألوهم، هاي همينة نوع من أنواع الإفادة. فمن يسألوك هل أنت حكيت أو كتبت أي شيء، هم لازم تكون واضح بأنه نعم أو لا، لأنه هاي همينة تقدر تستخدم معك أو ضدك.
John, anything?
I mean, I think with statements, I mean, it's one of those things where you just have to be a little careful. But again, to remind the listeners, we're talking about motor vehicle accidents, right? So the insurance company is going to talk to you right away, right after an accident, and they're going to say, "Well, what happened?"
Yeah.
Right. And I think the issue comes into play here at a deposition if they say, "Well, didn't you give a statement to our adjuster the day after the accident, saying that you weren't hurt,
saying that you were fine, right?"
Okay, but now you're saying you are hurt. So when did that change? And I think that's one of the things that we just discussed with the clients. It's not uncommon for people to feel a lot more pain a few days after an
that's
accident.
how it'll play out, right? They ask you if you gave any statements. You can, you say yes. You talk to the insurance adjuster. Now they pull a recorded call from the insurance adjuster,
Exactly,
and they'll try to use that against you.
Right.
But most of the times after accident, after 2-3 days,
that's when you feel it.
This is
what you
feel.
feel.
Well, that's the thing, right? So again, this is why lawyers exist, because
they know that most of the people, after accident within 3 days.
أنا ما أنصح، بس أقول خلي الأفضل بأنه واحد يقول ما أعرف حاليا.
ما يقول ما عندي ألم.
بالضبط.
يعني say I don't know.
I don't know right now what's going on.
But sometimes you don't think about that.
Well,
right? You get a call from someone. It's the adjuster. They say, "Hey, how?" Like I said,
how are you now?
How are you doing?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Claim closed.
Bye.
Exactly. Well, and even more than that, I mean, on some level, I don't think people want to file these claims in general, right? Like, I mean, I've been in an accident before where I was like, yeah, my back kind of hurts, but I'm not going to tell the insurance company because I don't want to go through all the work of filing a claim, right? And so, you know what? Are you injured? I'm going to go with no. Right now, no. But then I think for a lot of people, it's, over the next couple of days, weeks, and months, you're like, man, you know what?
I have pain.
This is not going to work. I got to get some treatment and I got to get it covered. And the only way to do that is file claims. So, I mean, that's frequently an answer I get from clients all the time. Why didn't you? I didn't want to go through with this, but then I really felt like I needed to.
What other statements that you can give? So let's say you're involved in a car accident and you're dealing with your insurance, obviously, and the medical bills part and whatever, wage loss. You can also get a call from the at-fault driver's insurance and adjuster.
Right.
Asking how you're doing. And essentially, they're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to see if there's any liability there.
Or what happened in the accident.
You're going to sue my insured and, things of that nature.
Right.
مثل ما قلنا الانشورنس مثلا ورا الحادث تخابرهم تقول لهم أنا صار عندي حادث وده تحكي أنت على السيارة شلونك احنا طبيعتنا شلونك زين الحمد لله عندهم الزين is not good زين يعني
ماكو شيء
يعني you're fine اوكي ما عندك لعدة قضية exactly الشغلة الأخرى اللي يقدرون من يخابرك همينة الانشورنس ضد اللي ضربك اوكي همين يقدرون يخابرون ويسألوك
يعني your insurance and
the other insurance yes
yeah.
همين يقدرون يخابروك ويسألوك شلون صار الحادث وانت شلونك I'm good.
أنا زين.
And
Yeah.
some
So we
people
have
wonder why are they getting these calls? This is from the at-fault drivers, and why do they care how I feel?
ايه
They're trying to see if there's any liability there, and if you're going to
Yes.
sue them, if you had a surgery done or something like that, they know that they may be on the hook for some.
Or you already have sued them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
So-
when you tell them.
لذلك احنا نرجع ونقول صار عندك حادث سيارة قبل ما تحكي أي أحد احكي ويا محامي خلي المحامي هو
قد
يسوي
الرقم تليفون مال المحامي لورنس؟
أنت دائما تمتحني
إيه.
It's 248-702-6641
طبعا لازم تعرف يعني.
Put it on the spot.
Put it on the spot, yes. But I know it because I say it all day long.
احنا دائما نقول للكاستمرز او الاصدقاء نقول لهم التليفونات المهمه
طبعا
اكتبها خليها على الثلاجه.
بالضبط.
No, you know what's even better? You know what I tell my clients, all my clients?
Yes.
Even if it's a case that we took on for a couple months and we were able to help them through the process, they feel better, everything's fine. I always tell my clients, put my phone number in your phone. Put it in your phone. Store it. You never know when you're going to need it.
اي تجينا
وخليه بالفيفوريتس.
يس تجينا مكالمات
There you go.
استاذ ساهر
نعم.
هم بعدهم هسه صاير الحادث يخابرون اني بالحادث ايش اسوي؟ خابر الشرطه فيخابرون حتى بس يريدون يعرفون شنو لازم اسوي لانه هوايه ما يعرفون شو يسوون. فمثل ما قلت تحطه على الثلاجه بس اهم شيء حطه بتليفونك حتى اي شيء يصير
It works.
دائما and it happens.
Yeah.
We have clients they call they just got in an accident they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm right now in an accident. Should I call the cops? Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead and call the cops.
And you
They
know it
do.
works because like I don't know if I mentioned, the other couple months ago I was looking for a plumber.
Yes.
So I looked at my phone, I typed in plumber, and I remembered, there was a guy that I used a few years ago. I liked him a lot. He did a good job.
He was
I called him
okay.
again.
Yes, exactly.
هو نفس الشيء بالضبط. إيه.
بالضبط.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I have a heating and cooling in my contacts. I don't know what the company is, but I've called it before.
You
So
know the name. You
that's
know
right.
the
I found it on my phone.
Listen, you have heating and cooling. You have even for
كل الشغل.
trees, for everything,
Everything.
right?
That's right. There you go.
For sure.
هاي خليه بالفيفوريتس.
Everything. Yes,
You need them.
you need.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's funny, a funny story actually. So I was in Sterling Heights. My first office that I ever opened, I was in Sterling Heights.
Yes.
And I have a 586 phone number. So this was about maybe 7-8 years ago.
Mhm.
When I moved to Southfield, we changed our phone
248.
number. It's 248 now. And I thought I had the old number ported over to my new number. Come to find out, we had a client about 6 months ago that came in and they said, I had your old phone number stored. I called it 10 times and
And nobody answered.
no one answered. And then somehow my daughter or something found you online or something like that.
I am calling you.
Right. And that's how they got back to us. So just, and that's, John, remember I was telling you, we didn't have the number ported over, so I had to work on that. But, it's a good thing. She got back in touch with us and,
There you go.
Oh,
They know the name.
is not the name. Almost everybody has a phone right now in their hands, and
كل الناس
أكثر
عندها-
عدد
عندك
تليفونات
تليفون أنت؟
ها؟
عندك تليفون؟
يمكن.
just put it
My
in.
phone is in my pocket.
You
Okay.
never know when
Yeah.
you're going to need it. Sometimes
need it.
you're in the middle of a situation you don't want to
Yes.
Google or, call around. Have it in your phone.
بس
You have it.
اكتبي
Type in.
محامي.
Yeah.
بس دوس محامي يطلع
يطلع
محامي.
محامي.
And they can call us for more than just motor vehicle
Yeah.
accidents, and we can always,
Definitely.
try and find them the right
لأي
person.
سبب
Right?
من الأسباب. أي بس خابر محامي يكون موجود وعلى الأقل همينة شوية يعني أكو ذيك اللحظة أنت كلش أعصابك تعبانة
نعم.
وتلفانة تحس أكو أحد وياك
Yeah.
وتقدر تسأل وتثق هاي أهم شيء.
هذا فعلا أهم شيء.
Yeah.
يس
بس اكو شيء واحد لما صدق يعني لما يصير واحد عنده حادث عقله يروح بغير عده مكانات يعني
يس يتشوش.
يتشوش.
يس
Yeah. And you know what else? What else we do? So after hours, I have a essentially somebody that takes in my after hours calls, and anytime they take in a call, they'll send me an email directly about what the call was about. And if it's something that's
Even
somebody's
if you
calling,
have 100 calls.
Yes.
if somebody's calling, it's emergency. I'm going to do my absolute best to call them back, even if it's midnight at night. I
Yes.
just
Yeah.
try to.
عندنا همنا سيرفيس بأنه حتى وراء 5 العصر إلى 9 الصبح تليفونات بعدها مفتوحة.
نعم.
عندنا سيرفيس خاص هم يجاوبوك، ورأسا الإيميل يروح للمحامي. المحامي إذا فد شيء كلش urgent اضطراري حتى لو بنص الليل أو أي وقت يرجع يتصل. نعم.
So start our phone tomorrow. What's our phone number again?
طبعا رقم تليفون المحامي لورنس موجود على الشاشة 248-702-6641.
Yeah.
Yes.
يعني طبعا
Couple minutes. Yeah, we'll go into a couple small things really quick. We're not going to finish today.
No,
we're not going to finish today.
Never finish.
But you know, actually, I do have another
we have 1 minute. Sorry.
another topic that's going to be huge. It's going to be
For next week.
Yeah, we're actually going to get into the accident now. The facts of the accident. We're going to talk about next week.
Yep.
الأسبوع الجاي راح نتكلم عن الحادث هو نفسه.
نعم.
شنو هي الفاكت مال الحادث اللي هي شلون يصير الحادث وشنو الأشياء اللي لازم نسويها.
Yeah. But before that, if we do have a couple minutes, I can just finish up this last part.
We have 1 minute.
Okay. So the next big thing is photographs, right? So if you took any pictures of the accident scene, your own body, showing injuries.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if the stop, whatever you have pictures of would probably help in our case.
And this,
they're going to ask you if you have pictures because they want those pictures.
Yep. And this was also part of our tips and tricks for maximizing the value of your case that we've talked about a couple times before.
Correct.
أهم شيء بأنه تأخذ صور سيارة، صور الجسمك، صور أي شيء، لأنه هذا جدا مهم بأنه يثبت. هاي واحدة من الإثباتات شو همنا كشاهد بأنه هذا الحادث صار.
طبعا thank you Mr. Lawrence. شكرا. thank you Mr. John.
Thank you so much.
شكرا ست تمارا.
يا أهلا وسهلا.
مستمعينا الكرام، مشاهدينا الأعزاء، كنا مع برنامج المحامي لورنس قاجي، وإن شاء الله نكون معاكم في الأسبوع المقبل وفي نفس الوقت الساعة 1 من يوم الخميس القادم. إلى اللقاء يا أحلى الأصدقاء.